Hi, I'm Kevin Drinkall.
Hi, and I'm Michel Nicolai, and we welcome you to Zyzal Networks podcast.
We've been in the network industry for over 15 years, and in these podcasts we want to try and untangle the world of networking, debunk some of those myths, explain some real-world examples along the way, to help you make better choices about selecting the right tech, product, and even help you guys build faster, more reliable, scalable networks, or just to keep your kids happy at home.
Well, welcome back for another podcast, and in today's podcast we're going to talk about Nebula and how it can work for MSPs and ISPs. So it's a little bit different approach today.
Yeah, and before we start talking about in-depth about how to use it, maybe we should introduce our guest for today.
Yeah, so welcome back, Hugh.
Yeah, thank you for having me back.
So managed service providers, I would say when we look at an MSP, and a lot of customers probably don't classify themselves as an MSP, but anybody who's really selling IT as a service and getting customers to pay some kind of subscription for their services or maintenance or anything like this, to us that is an MSP. Whether you view yourselves as an MSP, under this classification, this is how we talk about managed service providers. ISPs, we don't need to describe, right? They are who they are, internet service providers. So they should know that they are an ISP, right? So, and yeah, I think we should really talk about, I would say, some of the challenges or some of the key features in our platform where we spent a great deal of time sort of working with managed service providers, understanding their, I would say, challenges and how they do their business. And then we've then built features and functions around them to facilitate, their deployment styles, etc., how they do maintenance and how they do, I would say, problem solving and how they get to the answers fast for their clients, right? So they can respond in a manner, right? So maybe we should touch on the deployment side of things.
Yeah, certainly deployment is one of the first starting points for any MSP deploying to a new customer, right? So how do we get our equipment out there? How do we get it installed? How do we get it registered onto the Nebula platform? And what advantages does it give? The first thing is it's the hands-off approach, right? We can QR scan in the box from the Nebula app. We can then put that straight into the platform. We can take photos from the app. We can do lots of things from the app. So again, the Nebula app is key to this deployment process.
So it creates like an asset management tool, right? You can allow you to add it to inventory, or you can add it into the platform itself, and even give us, like you say, the photographs, right? If you've got geotag enabled on your phone, actually we'll add it with location as well. But as part of the onboarding process, you can do that as well, right? So a really fast approach.
Yeah,
right?
it's quicker than the device will actually boot up. The device is in the Nebula cloud platform. So again, that is key. Okay. And again, with that hands-off approach, we can just scan it in, the configuration can be done, and then you can ship the units out to site or open the units up and it's already there. So as the device boots up, it's already deployed in the Nebula with its configuration.
Yeah, so configure while it's still in the box, right? That was our slogan at the beginning. Right?
Yeah, it's like provisioning. Yeah, your equipment, that you prepare everything in advance, and when the products are there, they are automatically provisioned into the correct configuration.
And it gives you that speed and efficiency of deployment and accuracy as well, because we know exactly what device is coming up onto the network and with what configuration.
Yeah, so really if you're doing a rollout, or if you're just, managing on scale like this, it makes it much easier, to deploy. Some other features I would say in the deployment that are pretty useful is the templates part and the cloning part of the product, right?
Yeah, it saves you a lot of time because you don't have to do that part of the config again. You just take it from the template, so you have a good head start already with your new configuration. So that's a good benefit.
So part of the cloning process, you can mostly just copy, mirror a configuration. In templates, you can actually make it so you have a master product, and then when you make a change to the master product, it makes all those products attached to the template update as well. So time saving, it's much faster to approach, and standardization is much easier to achieve.
Yeah, the standardization on templates is key. Again, if you are rolling out lots of same devices, this is fundamentally the way that you want to go around a configuration.
Yeah, and probably you as an MSP have, let's say, a standard how you want to deploy your network to your customer. Let's say you want to have a specific VLAN for management or whatever. Something is always on the same place. So when you do and add a new customer in, you just can copy that in, and that part is already done.
I think when you're looking at, these types of like the templates, another thing to obviously look at is VPN and the security side, right? So VPN wise, we have VPN Orchestrator. Absolutely speeds up the process of connecting site to site.
It is so easy now. You literally, few clicks of the mouse and your sites are all connected together. And again, in different configurations, it's not always hub and spoke. It could be site to site, fully meshed, etc. So again, the options are really there for you within the Nebula platform.
Yeah, it's not only the connections that you do, but also all the policies that apply automatically. And that is a huge time saver. Imagine that you do a VPN over 4 branch offices. The number of policies you need to build to talk to each other, it's huge. And now with the VPN in Nebula, it is a 2-minute job.
Yeah, so all that, mate, and also monitoring them. The other side of it is also what we call SPS, right? The profile synchronization for security side of things as well. Given there's so many, especially around MSPs, where there's so much around the security side that needs to be addressed, right? When you're deploying, you can create a policy where every site is repeating the same policy, firewall rules, same security methodology, and you can create that profile and then apply it. You may have different ones, right? So.
Yeah, and again, from speed and efficiency there, if you want to add a new whitelist or blacklist or change your content filtering, for instance, because a website's become classified, you just change it within the single profile and it's just sent out to all of your devices. You don't have to go round your 2, 3, 10s, 20s of sites changing each configuration line.
Arguably, you could say that's maintenance as well as deploying, right? Because you could say that when you come back to update something, like you say, where you get a new profile or a new website needs to be added, or a new rule you want to apply globally, you can do that as part of maintenance. So actually leads us into a little bit into the maintenance side of things as well, right? Because maintenance is a big part of what MSPs have to do on a daily basis.
Yeah, you try and avoid it, to be honest. It's the bit that no one wants to really do. So again, automating it and making it efficient and reducing that time that you spend on it is key. Okay, so things like firmware upgrades is key. We all got to have our devices upgraded to the latest or the most stable release. So therefore, we want that to be automated. We don't want to be doing that on a manual approach. And we can schedule that in with the Nebula platform.
I mean, if you ask a lot of customers, right, they probably don't even, they probably admit that they don't patch, switches, for example.
This is, all the security policies that are coming out within, or regulations that are coming out within Europe. This is key. And it's all about keeping the firmware up to date and securing those vulnerabilities that, will come out at some point.
But remember, maintenance is a key factor for us, for resellers, because they should care of their customers. Yeah, their customers rely on them, that they can always operate with their equipment, that their equipment that they bought with the reseller is always operating. And also part of the maintenance is, let's say, the alerting that we are providing out of Nebula. So if something goes wrong, you as an MSP or as a reseller are alerted, and probably in advance, so you can call the customer instead. The customer is calling you and say, hey, there's something wrong. So maintenance is a key factor in this one.
Proactive approach as opposed to being reactive approach, right? The other thing I would mention about firmware as well or patching, is that we added quite a bit of intelligence into the process, right? We made it so that, I would say, a big fear factor of doing, I would say, firmware updates from any engineer is, doing it overnight. So when you do a firmware or you schedule firmwares within our platform, we also added this intelligence to say, okay, if you're going to do a firmware upgrade on a access point, don't reboot the PoE switch that's powering it, right? Or don't reboot the gateway it's getting internet on, right?
surely you just upgrade all the devices at exactly the same time, right? That just causes chaos. No, yeah, absolutely. This intelligence that allows us to go through the device, understand what your site and organizations are made of, and upgrade those devices in a fashion so if we upgrade the security gateway, we make sure that comes back before and upgraded before we go into the switches. The switches come back, and we then do the APs, and we understand how your environment is built to understand how that process works.
Yeah, even with large numbers of APs, we manage them in groups. Yeah, so don't worry that if you have a couple of hundred APs, that all of them at the same time are doing the upgrade. No, we put them in batches. Yeah, so to make sure that there is something available for the customer to use.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what I mean. We put quite a bit of intelligence behind the mechanism, and that's the benefit of the cloud platform, understanding how the products are connected to each other, right? So it means that, we can, like Hugh mentioned, do it in some kind of sequence so that it's manageable and, and even have some failover functionality for firmware, etc. as well, right? Another side there we mentioned briefly was backing up. Hugh mentioned that, right? And backing up in the cloud, like switch configurations, is a major bonus for Nebula, right? It means that you can really take advantage of that, where you can make a snapshot on the switch, and then you can also restore it, as well. So really, really great.
And not only on the switch, yeah, also on your mobile router or on your firewall, we have the same functionality, yeah, to make a backup of your configuration.
So other sides of it is also we have for managing at scale is obviously like, as an MSP, you need to keep track of who's making what change. We also include that process as well, so you can see what changes were made by what user.
You get complete audit trails. So again, it's really key to understand, I didn't change anything and suddenly it miraculously works, right? We've all been there, we can see that. We can see exactly who is changing, what has changed, and when it was changed. So again, this whole change log is necessary to actually be able to track what is going on within your environment and when something was changed, if it was changed.
Again, speeding up the process of trying to understand what, when, and where, right? So I think when you look at firmware process, no one wants to be working in the evening doing firmware upgrades, right? And checking and doing them individually. So this is, all about time saving and about speeding up the process for a day-to-day management task, which, let's be honest, no one wants to really do, right? So, and that leads us on to, what happens when a customer calls? Like, how do you get to the information, right? That's also a big issue around MSPs, is how they're going to fault find issues quickly of the tools that are available.
Come on, let's be honest. We don't have any faults. We don't have customers calling us. No,
everyone works seamlessly.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. We live in a fictitious world, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Things change, and certainly from a wireless point of view, environments change. On a wire, it's fixed, maybe the rat chews through it, etc., or something along those lines. But in the wireless, we have a world that's always changing and an environment that's always changing. People move through it, devices get added, and we have a number of AI ML tools that are available to us within our platform that can not only use when the problem occurs, but can actually guide you and help you to be proactive in the process as well. So you can see it and be alerted to it before it really happens.
Yeah, I mean, one of those features, which, I don't want to dig too much into all of the individual features in Nebula, right? But I think Wi-Fi Aid is a fantastic tool for fault finding. It almost gives you an immediate information about why it's called Wi-Fi Aid. Is actually more about what happens to the client, because a lot of clients connect but don't get the rest of the information on the network, right?
Yeah, and the key, it allows us to see that and experience that from the user point of view. So again, we know what's happening within the environment. And again, it just helps us to resolve those issues and those potentially common issues much, much quicker.
Because how many people complain and immediately say, it's the wireless, because they think that is the most vulnerable part of the network. So they always point out at the wireless. And then we see with the Wi-Fi 8 tool that most of those or it's called wireless issues, is in truth not a wireless issue. It is something else, yeah? It is a DNS that's missing or a DHCP that's missing. So then it's not the wireless that should be blamed, but it is something different. And that helps you a lot in fixing the problem, because you don't have to look at the wireless part. You can go directly to your DNS or DHCP part to fix it. And that's much, much quicker.
Yeah, so it just enables you to, again, get to the problem fast, understand where the issue is, and just speed up the whole process to eliminate issues and get to the end of it as well, right? We talked about, you just mentioned about switching there, Hugh, but we do actually have tools in switching to check the cable, right? To make sure that it's there,
absolutely. And we can see the status of the cables, right? So common one is that a lot of people don't see is actually speeds drop. So again, if there is resistance or power, drop in the cable or quality of the cable, the speed will automatically drop. And it's about, did I know about that? Can I see that? How do I know that, the first thing that you're going to see is the user's going to phone up and go, it's slow. And then you've got to work out why. Absolutely, we can see it.
Yeah, I mean, in switching, you also have tools, that allow us to look at the broadcasting block. We have the standard protocols and standard tools as well, right? But also it gives you a full visualization about the PoE power. So it really gives you a very quick access to all the dashboards and views to get at the data, right?
Yeah, and the examples are not only in Wi-Fi and switches, but even on your firewall. You can check on your quality of your VPN, the speed, is the connectivity is there, and those kind of things. And that helps you also a lot why this is not available, this service.
Yeah, and if we wrap all of that up, we have all the logs in one place, which means you can see everything in the log file from one place. So it's great.
Very efficient.
Yeah, quick access, etc. Yeah. So I think we should talk about MSP pack, right? And the features and functions and what that does for our customers. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about how Nebula is really structured, so that you have that understanding of how it works, right?
So what, do you mean like sites and orgs?
Yeah, exactly, right? So the way it originally designed was that it was designed from the ground up to be multi-organizational structure with multiple sites. So you can create as many sites as you like underneath each organization. You can add as many orgs and as many sites as you like. And underneath those, you assign your devices. And then obviously you have your connected clients, right? So when you look in Nebula, you see client connected to device. The device sits inside a site, and a site sits inside an organization. So, for example, you could have our company like Zeisel Networks, right? You could have all of the branches, like, for example, Netherlands branch, Germany branch, UK branch. And then underneath them, you have, the wireless, and you have the switching, the security, even the 5G, right, as the failover component. And then connected to those, you have the clients. So you can see all of that in one platform. And of course, under the standard license, which is a base pack, which is completely free, you can create as many orgs and as many sites as you like. And then you can apply packs. So we have Plus Pack and a Pro Pack. We'll talk more about the Pro Pack because that's the one that's fully featured, right? So if you have more complicated installation, or you need more functionality, or you need extended logs, or you need the topology and all these extra functionality around each individual device, configure them, then you can apply one to a organization, which means all the site and the device underneath it have licensing.
Yeah. So you just buy a license for each individual device within the org, and you can do a fully upgrade of your organization to leverage from all those nice features.
Of course, we understand, right? Managed service providers, they have a mixed environment where they'll have some on the free version, they'll have some on the paid version. At that level, you can manage them, but the problem is when you want to scale up, to scale even more so, we also added an additional tier basically above that, right? So that it can manage above the organizations to give you this extra layer.
Yeah, like it's like some kind of an umbrella on over the organization. A view.
So again, when you manage a organization, you're looking at that organization individually, and then the site underneath it. The MSP pack, like I said, is the umbrella, is the level above that, and actually what it does is it allows you to manage and view all of those organizations at the same time, so you can see what the status is. It kind of gives you that overview dashboard that is required. So I don't have to look at the individual organizations, the individual sites. I don't have to drill down. I just have that nice single dashboard view and see what the status is. Yeah. Hopefully all green, right?
Yeah, under MSP, obviously you look at it like this, like org is like a customer. Typically you would say, okay, you have an org is my customer, and that my customer has, 10 coffee shops, therefore I've got 10 sites, right? So this is how you would configure it. And then underneath that organization, you would build, like we discussed, this templates, the cloning, the SPS, the security profiles, all that patch maintenance would go under there. But when you get to the level above it, you want to manage those things even higher, right?
Yeah, you want, again, things like templating, for instance. Again, you might be wanting to use the same configuration for those different organizations, those different customers that you have, you want to replicate time after time. And, the cross-org syncs and the cross-org templates allow us to do that.
Absolutely. And I think, if we broke it down to 3 components, right, what does the MSP pack do for you as a customer? It's like this. You've got cross-org features like you mentioned here, right, where you've got these elements, and also helps through the deployment where you basically replicating a customer type. I know many MSPs, they actually have packages, right, where they do small, medium, large customer, and this is the price that they do it for times how many devices. But this is, you could do it like this, where you could create a profile to do that, to help speed the process up, help standardize the process so that it's easy to maintain, right? All in all, time-saving exercise. But also it gives us cross-org maintenance, cross-org features, and team management as well.
Team management's a great feature within the MSP pack.
Yeah, very important.
So again, if we start breaking things down, you're limited on the free base pack. You're limited to the number of admins you can have. Whereas under the MSP license and under the teaming effect, those limits just disappear, right? So you can have, as many admins or engineers or people who are logging in under your MSP pack, under that team, they can log into those orgs and those sites. Fantastic.
Yeah. So, if you have a maintenance team or IT team, for example, you can say this person can access all of these organizations, and then let's say, for example, people come and go, right? So you want to remove them. If you do it without MSP pack, you'd have to go through every site removing them, those that you could apply to manually, whereas you can actually have a team management section where you can do it all in one place. Again, speeding time and effort up all the time, right?
Maybe it's good to know that the MSP pack, it's not an upgrade of your organization, but it is a license that you assign to a user. So the user can be the owner, but it can also be an admin in there, and you upgrade that user with the MSP functionality. So that user at that time gets all these additional features that we just came across.
Yeah, but do I need to apply that license to every single user that I have?
And do you know what? I was going to ask the same question, because that is the number one question we get asked about MSP pack. Yeah. Absolutely.
Because we're applying it to a user, not generically users to the site.
Yeah, but I think it is good that not everyone get that privilege, because give an example that you mentioned on the admins and teams, that you create a team. Do you want that all your administrators are able to make their own team or to change teams in this one? Maybe you want to have this assigned to your, let's say, support manager or your team leader, that only he or she can make this change because it has a great impact to change the privileges of the users. So if you think that one person is not enough, because in Nebula we assign it to an account, and if that account is a user email address, then obviously only that user can use the MSP functionalities. If you think that it's too limited, then feel free to add another person in and give that person also MSP privileges.
So you could classify it as a super admin, right? So basically every admin user that's in the team is an admin of organizations, but then the MSP pack gives you a super admin role where you can manage those admin users, right? So they always become a super admin. And then that all really depends on how you operate as an MSP, whether you need more than one. But you could say that bare minimum in this environment is you have one super admin and then you have the admins assigned to it. And then if you decide to have a couple of teams, you could almost have two super admins and all the admins underneath it. So this is how typically we can work. Of course, if you still have more questions, you can reach out to our pre-sales or sales engineers in each territory, or even speak to some of the sales guys who will put you in touch with the right person to speak to it as well, right? If you're thinking about deploying Nebula with MSP Pack and you need more help, of course, reach out to us and we'll definitely give you some more information and intel.
Yeah, but let's talk more about the feature set. Yeah, so what kind of tools does this person get to manage all those organizations? Yeah, we talked about teams and groups that we can create. We get a great overview, but also firmware deployment or an overview of all the assets in all the organizations. It's all there. Yeah, it's a great tool that you can have when you have this privilege.
And what about branding?
Branding, that would be really nice. Yeah, now you have the opportunity even to provide access maybe to the end user, give him maybe only monitor access, so then the end user can look at his assets and see how they're doing. Also, we'll see in the dashboard who is managing his network. So instead of, if for people that already saw Nebula live, you see in the upper left corner, you see the Nebula logo. But as a reseller, you can change it to your own logo. So then it's really personalized.
It's really personalized from the experience, absolutely. And this is for an MSP, that this is key, that they get to put their own stamp on those environments.
And even for support purposes, we can change the way how we present ourselves as an MSP, because normally every user that uses Nebula can get support directly out of Nebula. But if you give the privilege maybe to look at your configuration as an end user and you go to the support options, maybe you don't want the end user to direct contact the vendor like us, but likes him to use the local MSP or you as a reseller the first line to support him. So you can put a nice line in there and say, if you need any support or help with your network, please call this in this number or this email address, and then we take you to the next step. So also that is possible when you're using the MSP license.
So lots of information there on the MSP pack, and I would say the features as well. But also what's interesting is that as a brand, we also, we changed our partner program to evolve around Nebula in a much bigger way. We introduced this in February. There is actually a dedicated podcast all about that. So if you want way more information than we're going to tell you in this podcast about it, then you can refer back to that and have a quick listen and see what you think. Obviously, give us feedback if you can. But that obviously details about the part of the program and why we made the changes. But The partner program today now follows Nebula, as in you are rewarded, even especially MSPs and ISPs, for utilizing the platform. So there are discount benefits depending on which tier, but now it's based on how many active devices you have in Nebula, right? And one of the key benefits, which is related to this particular podcast, is that we actually give the MSP pack once you get to Prime status or above.
So what? You mean it's free?
Yeah, basically, we get. I mean, obviously, you have invested in buying products from us, right? And
this is such a great benefit for our users and our MSPs that are out there, that actually we reward you for the number of devices that are in Nebula and in our cloud platform, and actually provide this license to you. And as you go up the tiers, you get a free license as part of that, and allows you to experience and actually see and use these tools, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, also as part of the partner program, we also provide training that go into that whole system as well, so into our ecosystem. So as you're onboarding new staff to utilize Nebula platform, we also have network engineers training where you can actually go through that. It's certified, so it's actually part of that process as well. So there are more benefits than just the the discount levels of the products, right?
Yeah, and there's other advantages as well, like pay as you go.
Absolutely. So we start to introduce pay-as-you-go or pay-YG.
Pay-YG or pay-G or whatever the terminology is. Yeah, absolutely. So we got feedback from our MSP community that wanted to understand how we could do monthly billing and pay as you turn devices on or off, of course, as you reduce. So again, we provided this facility that as you reach the numbers, we can actually facilitate that process now.
Yeah, so we have another platform, Circle, which will be able to manage that whole process and will allow you to basically do a monthly subscription, like Hugh said, grow or shrink with your business. So it's a very flexible approach. And also we understand that this is how a lot of MSPs actually operate with this monthly billing process, right?
Yeah.
So it just falls in line with how you're doing everything.
Yeah, it's great. Of course, we don't want the shrinkage. We want the growth.
Absolutely, yeah. But I mean, it does mean that, let's say, unfortunately, a customer goes, they're no longer here, then why?
Yeah, we're realists, right? And we understand that business isn't always in one direction, and it can change for whatever reason and how it can change. So we allow that flexibility.
And you know how we started it, yeah? It's all about efficiency, speed, ease of use, and this license part is also ease of use. Yeah,
license.
No worries. You'll always get your license extension.
The number one thing when you look at this is managing licensing is a big pain for every vendor, for every company. Managing renewal license of products, etc., is extremely difficult, and we want to try and fix that, right? I mean, with Nebula, we simplified the licensing already with our security as well. We try to really bring it down to be as simplistic as approach as possible to help in the field when you're doing renewals. It's easier to understand. Licensing is a minefield of you're trying to fix this kind of problem is very difficult. And if you look at other vendors, they have thousands of part codes to order from, with little different details or slightly. But with this approach, you pay a monthly subscription basically based on how many devices you have. You don't have to handle licensing the same way, right? So far superior.
Oh, and yeah, like I said, the speed and efficiency is
key.
It's key.
And it's
fully automated.
Oh yeah, fully automated. You don't have to worry about it. Yeah, and obviously because it's monthly, you can adapt very quickly. So it makes it very easy to manage at scale as well, which is one of the key elements that we got the feedback from. So lots of information there. I mean, we could talk all day about some of the other, really drill into the detail, but I think this gives you a very good top level view of why Nebula can benefit managed service providers and ISPs when you're delivering, some of the key features and functions, and some of the challenges that we try to address, like the last one, like licensing, right? Very key challenges when you start to scale out and managing products, managing teams. If you are interested in using it, there is a 30-day trial available for it as well, so that you can trial in Nebula today. But also, if you reach out to your team as well, they will also help in the process. And like we mentioned, the partner program does include it when you get to this prime status as well and above. This is also a benefit of the partner program. So thank you very much for listening. I think that's it for today, right?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, and see you soon.